Good evening, and welcome back, poetry lovers. This is ZM Wise, and here I am with another home recording just for you. This recording is going to be a little different in the sense that I'm going to tell you a story that has not only an uplifting ending, but is also meant to encourage others. Now, that poster I showed you, I really apologize for my webcam displaying everything backwards, but if you could not read that clearly, it said Al Stewart, and there was his signature. I have to tell you, over the years, he's become one of my favorite artists ever on a multitude of levels. First of all, his songwriting and lyrics are quite unique, especially his rules of songwriting. He encourages people not to use such typical words and to explore with other just either odd-sounding words or just peculiar words in general and incorporate them into the songs. And I also really love him because even though Year of the Cat and Time Passages were quite popular, he didn't prefer the pop life. He preferred to be underground. Now, here, let me show you the poster once more. This is him now. This was him back in early to mid-70s. And what happened was, the beginning of last year, 2015, I saw on his website that he was going to be in Georgia. Now, I had never been to Georgia before, and he was playing in Decatur, the hometown of one of my good friends. And I booked it. I went there myself. It was a much-needed journey and a much-needed experience. I had a great time at the hotel. And, well, this was the first one, the first night. It was right near the airport, and I took a cab to the second one, and it was right near the venue where he was playing. And I'm not sure if you noticed, but a lot of big-time artists are now preferring the club setting, and either a club or a pub or some sort of saloon. And they prefer it because it's a more intimate experience with the audience. And when I got to the hotel, I was gushing to the front desk person of how huge of a fan I was, even though I had no idea who this front desk person was. And he told me that Al Stewart was staying in the same hotel. You could see my jaw dropping completely. And, of course, I asked, where was he? And he said, well, I would tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. And I'd be like, completely understand. And so I grabbed my belongings and went upstairs. It was about 1:30 in the afternoon. The concert didn't start until about almost 8 that night. Now, almost immediately, after putting down my luggage, I heard a ringing on the telephone, and I picked it up. I said, yes, and the front desk person says, yes, is your room okay? And I said, yes, and he said, good. Well, when you go to the concert tonight, just tell the front desk person there that Mr. Al Stewart would like you to introduce yourself, like the young man from the Marriott to introduce himself. So, of course, I'm seeing stars in front of my eyes, my head's just exploding and glowing, and I had to ask this poor front desk person to reword this wonderful announcement to me in about 5 different ways until it finally sank in that I was going to have an exclusive meeting with Al Stewart right before the concert. It was mind-boggling. So I had about 6 hours to get the fanboy out of me. Not easy, of course, and I realize that celebrities really don't like to be treated as such. They're people like everyone else, but if it's someone who's been a huge influence on you and your work, and he has been a huge influence on a lot of my poetry, you get a little tense. So I was preparing what I was going to say, what I was going to ask him, and prior to the concert, I had written a poem that was dedicated to Mr. Stewart and his work, and I was going to give it to him at the concert. I didn't even think I was going to meet him, so I prepared. I just walked to the concert venue, and my heart was beating about as fast as a stampede. Some people have butterflies in their stomach. I had flying saucers. I had everything I had rehearsed in my head dissipated completely. I had no idea what to say to this gentleman now. So I went to the venue. I asked the front desk lady, I said, I'm the young man from the Marriott. Mr. Stewart wanted me to introduce myself. And she said, okay, wait here. She went into this little room, and she pointed at me. I could only guess that Mr. Stewart was staying in that room. So she told me to come back there. I asked her, is it okay if I'm kind of nervous? She says, no, that's quite all right. But then she sort of said, but here he is! And inside this little room was none other than Al Stewart himself, in the flesh. I didn't even know what to say. I did not want the awkward silence to prolong itself, so immediately I extended my hand and said, Mr. Stewart, it is a genuine pleasure to meet you. Shook his hand. Shook the man's hand. Goodness gracious, I sound like my father when he met Neil Armstrong. Now, the dialogue that followed, we talked about wine, history. He even asked me to play a little harmonica for him, so I played the intro to Neil Young's Heart of Gold. And, of course, being nervous, I don't think it was as stellar. Hopefully I didn't ruin harmonica for the man. And I knew which albums he didn't want to talk about, which albums he disowns, and we actually share a favorite. He made this concept album called Down in the Cellar. Almost every single song pertains to wine. And so I told him that was one of my favorites, and immediately his eyes perked up, and he said, really, do you like the album, or do you just like wine? I said, both. And so we talked about wine. Like I said, we talked about history, and we talked about the sound of harmonicas during the Civil War. We were bantering back and forth about certain subjects, and it was just the whole thing was just completely mind-boggling. And I told him, I really look forward to seeing you perform tonight. And so I must have been the youngest one in the pub. And everyone was amazed how I knew the lyrics to almost every single one of the songs. A couple actually came up to me and said, are you even old enough to know who this man is? Said, yeah, I go far back. I mean, from here below, I'm 26, but up here, I'm in my early 80s. I go back to artists before Al Stewart was even born. So during the intermission of the concert, I went to buy that poster that you saw for him to sign. And he was out there. He was just out in the lobby, just talking to his associates. And I asked him about that poster. And I said, Mondo Sinistro is actually one of my favorite songs. And he said, well, I mean, if you want, I could sing it right now. I didn't know if he was kidding or not. So he started singing Mondo Sinistro. Look up the song, by the way. Brilliant. And I started singing it with him, and it was so great. We were singing one of my favorite songs by him together, and it was just out of sight. I saw the second half of his concert. And then I waited in the back of this line to get a picture with him. I didn't want him just to sign my poster. I wanted a picture with him. So he did. We took one, and right at the end, he told me to keep writing. That was the pinnacle of the night, when he told me to keep writing. And, I mean, no matter what way he meant it, I took it. And so on the plane back home, I had this sudden epiphany. I said, no matter what happens now, I will never, ever be nervous with meeting someone new, ever again. And it's true, whether it was a future significant other or a job interview, there's nothing to be nervous about. If I almost made myself look like a babbling fool in front of one of my greatest influences on my poetry, then what did I have to lose? Who was I trying to impress now? Do you see what I'm saying? So I want to encourage you. You don't necessarily have to meet one of your idols to have that feeling, but it certainly helped me. And it helped a fellow friend of mine who met his idol Emeril Lagasse, and he was never nervous with meeting anyone new ever again. And it's true. Sure, the heart beats faster on occasion, but that's still normal. And yeah, so that's my experience with Al Stewart. I also wrote an essay about this entire experience and how to encourage others to just dive right into the fire when you see an opportunity. And I wish all of you the best. Hope I didn't prattle on for too long, but I need to get this out there. And not sure if Al Stewart ever gets on YouTube, but if he does, Al, it was an honor seeing you in concert. I'm definitely going to see you again this year. So, what am I forgetting? Ah, yes. Poetry Lives. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Look me up on Amazon, Twitter, LinkedIn, SoundCloud, and Tumblr. Have a great day, all of you.